Well, it's another year and spooky month is here. And nearly over. How did it go by so fast? And yet most of my content I've posted recently hasn't really been in the holiday spirit. It kinda sucks since I really used to like Halloween. The costumes, the candy, and most importantly, the monsters. Vampires, werewolves, skeletons, witches, sexy witches, and actually, no, I never could get into those. Or the Saw films, just all that's just a little much for me. But of course, there's one iconic monster that arguably is the most iconic of all. Zombies. I mean, let's be real, there was a massive zombie craze from the early 2000s towards the early 2010s for them, though they've also long existed and were pretty popular before that, with stuff like Night of the Living Dead and Dawn of the Dead being the most iconic films to set the genre. So it isn't that surprising that a board game around the concept would come out, let alone be pretty damn popular for over a decade. Hello people, I'm D Scorpion, and today we're taking a look at probably one of the most noteworthy titles of board games. You know, aside from the ones that make you rage and ruin friendships and family. Zombicide. Created by the ever-famous Cool Mini or Not, or Simon, yes I'm 12, and Guillotine Games back in 2012. Have you ever wanted to try your hand at surviving the zombie apocalypse while still living in the relative safety of your home? Well, you've found the right game. You and up to 5 other people can team up to run from, shoot down, slash to bits, and burn up the endless hordes descending upon you. And if you can't get enough people, or if you're just straight up friendless, that's no problem because you can still play this all by yourself.
Finally, a game system for me!
Now, before going ahead, I do want to specify that I'll be mostly looking at the Black Plague and the subsequent Green Horde variations of the game, as those are the ones I've been primarily collecting. Outside of that, let's go over the story. Simply put, world's gone to shit with the dead rising. Necromancers have risen up and raised an army of darkness to tear down the world of the living. You, the local peasantry, are all that's really left 28 days later, and are now facing impeccable odds to not get eaten and put the dead 6 feet under again. And that's kind of it. This isn't really a board game with a deep story to play through. It's much more of the pick a scenario, pick your hero, set up the board, and try to complete the objective while not adding to the massive shambling problem kind of game. To go over gameplay, I won't go deep into details, but I'll give the basics. Your party can explore around the board with a limited number of actions per turn, which you can use to, say, loot, trade equipment, or create noise to lure zombies in a certain direction. Obviously, you'll be killing zombies throughout the game, but there's a catch. The more you kill, the more experience you gain, which in turn makes you more powerful. But that also makes the game more deadly, as not only more zombies will spawn on each turn, but more powerful ones. And there is a fair variety of the Walking Dead you will encounter. Walkers are your very basic zombies that move slowly, but if you get caught with a lot of them, well, you can't really move and you'll be torn to shreds. Fatties, as the name implies, are obese zombies that require high damage to take out. Runners are ripped straight from titles like Left 4 Dead or CSGO for the brain-dead idiots who decide to rush B, making it a little harder to play in traps as they'll close the distance faster. And speaking of Left 4 Dead, there's also the tank equivalent known as the Abomination. This guy is effectively a mini-boss, both dealing high damage and requiring high damage to kill like the fatties, except higher. Hope you picked and leveled a character to handle those guys quickly. Lastly are the Necromancers. While they're not undead, they are a very huge priority when they spawn. See, when they arrive, they create an additional spawn point, meaning more zombies. They will also try to run to a different spawn point when they arrive, so you have a chance to catch and kill them. Now, if I'm reading the rules right, if they do make it to that other point, they escape, but nothing else happens. But if they escape with a certain number of spawn points active, you will instantly lose. Killing a Necromancer, however, allows you to remove any spawn point from the map. All of that you need to plan and keep track of as you try to complete your mission. The base game of Black Plague comes with 10, with objectives like find food, steal a book, or try to crowd the undead spawn pits back into a single point. Easier said than done. However, since then, there has been continual support for the game in both official missions that you can find on their website, or look up community creations and even make your own. And that's kind of it. A board game that's relatively easy to jump into, simple mechanics, but overall gameplay has lots of strategy to it, and loads of support already from the creators themselves and what you can find or want to create. It's a really good system that, dare I say, has some drawbacks I need to elaborate on a bit. See, the game for the most part has been around for over a decade at this point. The original version of the game takes place in more of the standard modern apocalypse, with guns, cars, and more of the focus on that kind of stuff. Black Plague was the follow-up that shifted scenes to a medieval setting that I'm also assuming had a bigger emphasis on melee, as well as adding the Necromancers. That was a good addition, and from what I can tell online, everyone loves this version. But from there comes Invader, which is yet another version, which I guess was supposed to be a lot more like Dead Space, but looking at the monsters, they feel less undead and more alien, eldritch, horror. Then you got Wild West, which I imagine has similar mechanics to the base version, except you have a train mechanic. Then there's Marvel, an actual Night of the Living Dead. The new second edition that only changes a few things, Green Horde that's just more Black Plague plus fantasy, and their recent Kickstarter of White Death, which is pretty jarring when you stop and look at the base characters in the box compared to the stretch goals. And the only new addition in this game is walls? The point being, while there are many variations of the game, the only thing changing with them is theme. There might be more of an emphasis on certain things from version to version and a new mechanic here or there, but they're all mostly the same game. As one comment I saw describe this series, it's the Madden of board games. Though on a side note, I imagine it's a lot more fun than Madden. To go back to Kickstarter, this is the next biggest issue with the game. It's primarily funded through Kickstarter each time. CMON is a massive game company that, for the most part, has published a good game after the next and at least makes millions. Yet they still rely on crowdfunding for most, if not all, their projects. On top of this, the worst tactic that they use is pretty relevant here: FOMO. The fear of missing out. Because they use Kickstarter, they use a lot of stretch goals and exclusive buy-ons. If you don't jump on now and grab at least one, you'll miss out. Now, most expansions do go to retail, and the base game already has a lot of content, so you really won't be skipping out on content if you decide not to buy. But to someone like me who's a bit of a collector, this is a nightmare, especially when it comes down to hunting old sets or single figures, as they're quite often rare and when they do show up are very expensive. These last few pieces alone collectively cost me almost $1,000. However, as I want to wrap this up and not end on a bad note, I will reiterate once again, these pieces are optional at the end of the day. And if there is something extra you would like, it's not impossible to get it without breaking your wallet. Some options won't be fully complete, like the box is missing, but will ultimately be cheaper, for the most part. The variety of extra characters you can get are also still good and give lots of references. Monty Python, Stranger Things, X-Men, Before X-Men, Die Hard, Shaun of the Dead, Munchkin, there's a lot. Some of the retail expansions are also good to grab still, from adding zombie dogs to a zombie dragon. That, and also expanding the player cap from 6 to 10 is also always a plus. Overall, Zombicide, as far as I've come to know it, is a bit of a collector's nightmare and not super innovative with each new version, but fun nonetheless. I would just say pick up the version that you like and stick with it. If the idea of an undead nightmare in the West is the best, go for it. If you can find some retail expansions, try grabbing them if you want to expand the game a bit. And if there are any extra exclusives that are appealing to you, it's really up to you if the price is worth it and how much you want to collect. So grab your friends, some guns, lollipops, and chainsaws, and fight against the dying light to stay human. For while they are billions, you have near infinite ways and time to cut them down and have some laughs while doing so. Thanks for watching. Here's a drinking game. How many other zombie references did I make total throughout this review? Leave a comment down below of what you think, maybe give this video a like and share it around, and subscribe for more when I eventually upload. Until then, happy Halloween.